Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to each and every one of you on behalf of Right Selection, myself, and Shaheen. Right Selection is a father and son family business, and we've been in the business of transforming lives both personally and professionally for over 25 years. During the current lockdown, it's been an absolute pleasure and privilege to connect with individuals and corporates to provide them high energy learning experiences to inspire, educate, and engage them during this time that we're all at home. Whilst these webinars are absolutely provided complimentary by ourselves, we partnered with Building Blocks. Building Blocks is support that supports about the slums, children who are from the slums, and whilst they are unable to go to school, we're arranging for providing them food on a monthly basis. So it gives you an opportunity to contribute, make a difference during this tough time. So the format for today is we will be having an informal interactive Q&A with Shaheen. So feel free to, in the chat box on the right, there's a Q&A mode. Do send in your questions over there, and we'll be delighted to ask the questions to Shaheen. And just to break the ice to get a sense of who's here with us, we'll start with the poll, and just to get a sense of who's here. So if you could answer one of the options that we have. What is your professional status? So not working, solopreneur, entrepreneur, or a professional working for a corporate. So just mark one of those boxes. It gives Shaheen and myself a sense of the audience that we have today. Thank you. Great. I can see that we have over 60% are professionals working for corporates, few entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and then about 10% who are not working. Okay. Great. We'll now give me great pleasure to introduce Shaheen to yourself. Shaheen is a screenwriter, author of the best-selling book, as many of you have seen, which is I've Never Been Unhappier. And she's a mental health activist. For those who'd like to follow her, we encourage you to go to Instagram, Here Comes the Sun Official. That's the mental health awareness page. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome you, Shaheen, to this webinar. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So we'll go straight into some Q&A,
Yep.
and you can share with us your thoughts. We'll start with question number one. I'm suffering emotionally by the current uncertainty. What can I do at home to start getting some kind of relief and peace of mind?
I think number one, it's very important to realize that we're all currently in a very unprecedented situation. There is absolutely no roadmap for this. There is no manual for this. This has never happened before. So the first thing to know is there's absolutely no right or wrong way to do this. I think there are a lot of things that you can do at home just in terms of just, little tips and tricks and things that I've been sort of following. Number one, the first thing that you actually learn when you're in therapy, especially for something like depression, is you learn the importance of having a routine. And the thing is, all of our routines have just gone for a complete toss right now, because everything that we were able to do at some point, we're not able to do anymore. And it sounds, routine sounds very basic, but it's something that I really understood the importance of. It doesn't need to be complicated, especially if you're not working right now. You need the routine even more. If you're self-employed, if you work for yourself, if you have your own business, it's more important than ever, because you don't have that structure of even working, doing video calls on a day-to-day basis. You don't have that structure of having to send work in at all. Yep. So it can be just as simple as, wake up at the same time every day, go to sleep at the same time every day, have meals at the same time. I think it's really underappreciated, the value and of how just knowing that you're going to eat lunch every day at 2 o'clock, it does so much for you mentally, to make you feel grounded and sorted. So I'd say number one, start with a routine. If you're working from home, even if you're working from home, this sounds really silly, but get ready like you're going to office. Like sit in your work clothes. It sounds really dumb, but don't sit in your pajamas. It really actually helps with your mental state. At least I found for me, it really does. The other thing I'd say is honest, like unplug from the news. It's I know it's a very hard thing to do, and most of us are kind of glued to our phones trying to figure out what's happening every single day. But I would definitely say unplug from the news, because it all it does is traps you in this vicious cycle of catastrophizing. And you have thought biases where you will actually only seek out news that reinforces your worry or your anxiety. Um, so the best way to avoid that is to basically unplug from the news. So these are the two major things I think that you can really do right now to actually help you.
Thanks, Shaheen. So what I took away from what you said is have a structure in your day, plan your day, and unplug from the news. It is what it is to some extent. We can't really change that. So at least
Yeah.
let's create some kind of structure for our own day,
Yeah.
something to look forward to. Great. The next question. Well, I have been in depression and I was diagnosed with schizophrenia 3 years ago. And since then, I've been learning to cope. But each day brings in new sets of challenges which overwhelm me. Any suggestions of how I can cope with this?
I get this question a lot, which is, questions like, how do I deal with negative thoughts? How do I deal when, things don't seem to be getting better? I'd say obviously number one being the most primary, if you are able to get professional help. Professional help doesn't necessarily mean going to a therapist. If that's something that you can't really do right now, there are plenty of helplines. There's plenty of places that you can call. I know that's very daunting. It doesn't seem like, for a lot of people, I think that's the hardest thing to do, is to actually pick up a phone and call somebody and get professional help. But I'd say number one, that is the best thing that you can do. It's what I always say. And other than that, I think, I've experienced the same thing where, for about 5 or 6 years with my depression, it just felt like every day I hit a new rock bottom, and it didn't seem to get better. Every time I thought I'd sort of conquered something, something new came along that I had to somehow try and fix. All I can say is that it eventually will get better. That's the nature of, that's just the nature of life. Nothing is permanent. Happiness is not permanent. Sadness is not permanent. You just have to put one foot in front of the other. There are a lot of things that you can do if you find yourself in a spiral of negative thoughts. Um, there's a lot of like reality checking, because what happens is when you have a mental illness and when you have you get caught up in that wave of just constantly feeling like nothing is working, and that really drags you down and like prevents you from actually being able to move forward. Um, so the one thing to do is do some reality checking, because your brain has a way of convincing you of a lot of things that aren't true. Like catastrophizing is also an example of just not reality checking properly. You'll go to the worst possible outcome immediately in your head. You'll go to that. It'll distort things. Things like I'm a failure. I can't do this. These are all things that are not actually true. So you have to reality check these things. You have to tell yourself. I'll give you a very small example about reality checking. I went to the grocery store for the first time in 21 days last week. And I'm a hypochondriac. Okay. So, a slight sniffle, a slight cough immediately on a normal day sends me into a spiral. And I went to the supermarket and I came back, and within 20 minutes I was coughing, and my head went, oh my God, you're coughing. That's like the number one like sign. But
Yeah.
then I had to stop myself and go, Shaheen, nobody on planet Earth has so far developed COVID in 20 minutes time. So there is no way that you have this. Again, it sounds a bit silly, but for me, it's a basic reality check. What are the facts? Does what I'm experiencing in my head right now line up with the facts of whatever it is around me? So
Sure.
that's a very, very helpful way of getting through your day to day and finding the resilience to get past it.
Right. Thanks, Shaheen. Just for those on the line, if you could type yes in the box that you have, you can see Shaheen and myself, and you are hearing us clearly. I believe there were a few people who had a challenge. They could just press refresh on their pages, and I'm sure it'll work. Thank you. Another question is: if I don't have much meaning of life or purpose of life, rather, how might I my emotional pain relate to this in this context?
you know um I think a lot of people are dealing with an overwhelming sense of futility right now, even if you've never experienced it before. For me, I've had this lack of purpose that I've dealt with my whole life. It's just everything in my life just seemed very futile and meaningless and pointless, and I never felt like I had anything to work towards. I think number one is you have to stop defining your purpose by what the world the world standards are. Your purpose cannot be someone else's purpose. Because I've had friends come up to me and say, I'm not a very ambitious or very driven person. And everybody else is driven by that, constant desire for productivity, but I don't feel like that. And that's okay. Everyone's different. It takes all sorts to make the world work and go around. I just think that if you feel like you have no meaning in your life, I feel like you need to just latch on to whatever the tiniest bit of meaning that you can, whether that's just your interactions on a daily basis with a family member, whether it's a book you're reading, whether that's a show that you want to finish. For a lot of people, finding meaning right now is very hard. Finding purpose is very hard. So I'd say just start really small. It doesn't have to be big. The purpose that you're finding in your life doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be just
Sure.
waking up every day to make yourself breakfast. Just keep it small, and
Simple.
you can go build from there if you feel like it. You don't even have to.
Great. Thanks, Shaheen. The next question is from Anaga. She's written, the employees are in a different location away from their elderly parents. They feel worried for their parents. Any suggestions on how we could handle this situation to, I guess, minimize the worry, stress, anxiety from being away from your parents?
I'm away from my parents right now, and it's very worrying to me. My father's 71, so he's considered a high risk, category of people in this environment. So I completely understand that. It is really hard. I worry. My grandparents are 92 and they're living by themselves. They have no help. So completely understand that. I think the best way to sort of minimize worry is to make sure that you're planning, like plan everything. So I'd say generally to relieve anxiety, create a health disruption plan for you as well as your family. If something were to go wrong, what are the steps that you would take? What would you do? So that means if you have elderly parents who have health issues, talk to a doctor. Say, given the health issues that my parents have in this, what should we keep in mind? How do we safeguard ourselves? How do we protect ourselves? Um, in the event that something were to go wrong, God forbid, then what is it that we do? What are the next steps that we take? I think a lot of our fears and our worries and our anxieties also come from not really having an idea of how we're going to cope, especially in times like this. Things are very hard. So I'd say number one, make a health disruption plan for you as well as everyone in your family, so that if something were to go wrong, what you can do. Keep in constant contact. I think this is a no-brainer for most people. Just make sure that you're in constant contact. Make sure that you're keeping tabs on family members, making sure everyone's following protocol, what the right things to do, what the wrong things to do. Um, that's all you can really do. Honestly, all you can do right now is make sure that you're taking all the precautions that you have been told to take, and to plan at the best that you can. There's Everything else is kind of out of your control. So I'd say just start with these two things, because it will actually help minimize a lot of the anxiety. Gautam, I'm sorry, the audio has cut out.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is a question that says how to avoid bad dreams or sleepless nights. How to stop negative thinking and bad memories which keep coming again and again.
Yeah, so this bad dream and sleepless nights, this is where I live. I live in the land of no sleep and bad dreams. And that's been happening to me a lot over the past couple of weeks. I mean, number one, for sleep, I feel like I'm going to say a lot of things that people already know, but it always helps to be reminded. It always helps to reiterate certain things. For sleep, number one, maintain good sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene is basically, very simple things like making sure you're not anywhere near a screen for at least an hour before you go to bed. Don't spend all day in bed. It's very hard, I know now, because we all have time. A lot of us are sort of the only place that we have is our bedrooms. If we're living with families, that's where we get alone time, but do not spend all day in bed. Make sure that bed is just for sleeping. Um, Again, a lot of simple things. Take a warm shower before you when you're winding down to go to sleep. These are all basic sleep hygiene. If you're not sure, Google sleep hygiene. A lot of suggestions will come up. That's one of the best ways to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to make sure that your sleep, you can get the most optimal amount of sleep. As far as negative thoughts go, like I said, you have to do a lot of reality checking. Every time you have a negative thought, you have to challenge it. You have to check whether the thought that is coming to you, how is it actually real, or is it just a catastrophizing negative thought that you have built up in your head? Because very often you'll find that if you actually start to question the negative thoughts, if you actually start to break them down, you will find that they're not true. They're not actually true. I found that 90% of the time I've had really bad negative thoughts, they've been completely without merit when I've actually sat down to challenge them. And so challenging the thoughts is very important. Um, Again, seek professional help if you find that it's not getting better, because very often if you are very, very depressed, you're not really going to be able to control those thoughts without additional help. Talk to someone. I find that just vocalizing a thought, when to my sister, if I'm having a bad thought, if I vocalize it to my sister and say, this is how I'm feeling, as soon as I say it out loud, it usually starts to sound a bit silly. So that really helps. And then you have somebody to also tell you that, no, this is absolutely not true. You have somebody to counter that for you.
I really like that point about sharing it, because I find the
Yeah,
moment you share it, it dissolves it immediately rather than churning in one's own mind. So I think that's
exactly.
really a
Exactly.
great suggestion. Thank you, Shane. This is from Nena. I'm handling a team and they're feeling low and isolated. Though we have video calls and coffee breaks, what can I suggest them to do as individuals? And more importantly, what can I do as a leader who's managing virtual teams who are, feeling low and isolated away from connecting with ourselves?
I think, look, number one, I really think the one of the best ways to deal with any kind of low is to tell somebody that it's okay to feel low. I think the problem is we're all, this is feeling low right now is completely normal. If you're not going to feel low now, I don't know when is an acceptable time to feel low. This is a very, very strange and bizarre situation that we found ourselves in. So I think when you allow somebody to, and if you validate someone's feelings by tell them that they're perfectly allowed and it's perfectly normal for them to be feeling what they're feeling, it automatically takes a lot of that away. For me personally, as soon as if I'm experiencing a low mood, or if I'm experiencing a bad day, if I have a family member tell me it's okay, that's understandable that you're having a bad day, a lot of that burden of forcing myself to feel better gets taken away. And I automatically do start to feel progressively better. So as a leader, I'd say first and foremost, tell everybody on your team that it's completely understandable that they're feeling low. It's understandable that they're feeling all the things that they're feeling. It is absolutely normal right now. Check in with them. Obviously, I know that there's video calls for work and stuff like that, but I think touch base on a personal level. I think it really helps to have somebody who is interested in how you're doing outside of just your productivity on a day-to-day basis. So check in on a personal level to see how they're faring, how they're coping. Again, I think all the things that I've said before apply. Encourage a routine. Encourage that they connect with people. Encourage that they talk to people. There's no cure for the isolation right now. There really isn't. We can really do the best that we can, and the best that we can. This is really good. What we have video calls. We can actually have conversations like this. I think practicing gratitude is also huge. It's a huge way. Practicing gratitude is a great way to help with negative thoughts. It's a great way to help with lowness and futility. Focusing on what you have versus what you don't have. For me personally, with dealing with depression, practicing gratitude has been key in me, feeling better and healing, because it really helps you focus on everything that you have, which people in worse circumstances don't have. So all these things apply in this situation as well.
Thanks, Shaheen. This is from Deba Priya. I don't feel well from a period of time. I don't feel like doing anything. I feel empty from within. Nothing makes sense to me in this world. I find it so difficult to get out of bed each day. I tend to make things worse situations in my head. Any cure or suggestions for this?
Um, Again, I'm going to reiterate,
Yeah.
professional help, number one. If you don't, not feeling like getting out of bed, it is one of the, like, it's one of the hallmarks of depression. It happened to me, it happens to me. It's something that I've lived with, that inability to actually function on a day-to-day basis. Again, I will reiterate, professional help doesn't mean, if you can't afford it, if it's not. I understand, because especially now people are worried financially. There are lots of very good helplines that you can call, because very often when depression is bad enough, there is medication that you will be put on. So it's important to actually talk to the right people so you can find out if medication is indeed something that you need to go on. I'm on medication. I've been on medication for a couple of years. I go on it on and off. I really find that it's what keeps me stable. It's what helps me. Um, Other than that, I can only speak from personal experience. And for me, I think, again, accepting the fact that I was feeling the way that I was feeling made a very big difference to how I dealt with it. I now, on days when I can't get out of bed, I tell myself that it's okay that I can't get out of bed. And if I need to stay in bed, I stay in bed. I understand that that's not feasible to do if you're doing that every single day for 3 months. I understand that obviously that's not a place that you want to be in. Um, do as much research as you can, read as much as you can about depression, read as much as you can about the various ways that you can help yourself at home. There's a lot of literature out there. The more well armed you are with knowledge, the better that you will be able to actually cope with this. Read stories of people that have gone through similar things. You will find a lot of nuggets of information, a lot of bits and pieces that will help you. I really find that that's what I did. I read a lot of books, I consumed a lot, because it helped me. It helped me sort of get information in an easy way. It gave me something to do. It gave me somewhere to focus my energy. So read as much as you can as well, I'd say.
I guess to some extent, what you shared would help with the next question as well. But basically, the future is so blur, uncertain. How do we plan for ourselves? What are your plans?
Okay, so honestly, I don't have plans. That's the thing. You can't plan, because you can't. How do you plan when you don't know how long you're planning for or how far in the future you're planning for? You really can't plan. And I think and that's okay. I think that has to be okay, because there's no other option right now. And I understand that that's very anxiety provoking, especially for people who are, you know, um, self-employed, who don't have steady jobs or steady income, and that's where it's project to project. I completely understand. I'm a writer, so for me it's also project to project. So I completely understand that that's very anxiety provoking. The only thing you can really do is plan, I'd say, a week at a time, because even now we have a May 3rd for the lockdown. There is a likelihood that that might increase. We don't know. Even if it doesn't, it will take things a while to actually get back to even keel. It's not going to happen overnight. You can't plan, unfortunately. You can do the best that you can. If your job allows it, if your life allows it, you can plan as far as you can. But I wouldn't, worry about that, because there is a lot of uncertainty, and it is extremely hard. So you can do the best that you can do.
Thanks, Shaheen. There are quite a few people who've asked this similar question, so I'll keep it as an open question to you to answer. But it's a lot of parents here have children studying overseas, and obviously there's anxiety on both ends, from the kids not knowing what's happening and they're in the US or Europe, and parents over here. So anxiety at both ends. What are your suggestions in this space? I know you touched upon it earlier
Yeah.
locally, but I think when you're in a different country altogether, the anxiety and stress seems to be higher or different. Any thoughts in that space for parents or children?
I think the best thing you can do is, depending on where your loved ones are. I have loved ones who are not in the same country. I have loved ones who are in the UK. So the best thing that you can do is follow up on all the whatever the policies are, whatever the situation is, everything that's going on ground, like the way that we know these are what's happening in Mumbai or India. We know what time shops are open, what time certain things are happening, what's closed, what's not, what hospitals are functional. I think the best thing that you can do is just sort of keep yourself abreast of what's happening in that particular city, country, whatever it is, what their laws are, what their rules are. So at least you kind of know, you have an understanding of what's happening with your kids, or vice versa for kids with their parents. You kind of know what the situation is around them. Again, create a health disruption plan. Again, I will say that, because again, it goes a long way in um, sort of assuaging that, sense of anxiety, because you know that there's a plan in place. Most of the anxiety comes from, oh god, if something happens, what are we going to do? So if you have that planned out, it really helps. And again, it is really the same thing. You have to stay as connected as you possibly can, and we're very lucky that we have the ability to stay connected. Make sure that family members are complying with whatever their local instructions are, and doing the best that they can, keeping well stocked at home. These are all basic things that you can do.
Thank you, Shaheen. My companion feels he will have a rebound of depression if he leaves the medicine and does not even consult a psychologist. How can I help him?
I think there's a lot of, I mean, I also completely understand that, because I've had that same, fear of coming off medication, because I also have come off medication in the past where I have sort of experienced symptoms coming back. That's also because I didn't do it in the right way. I did it by myself without, talking to my doctor. I just decided myself to sort of wean myself off my medication. I didn't do it the right way. It's a very legitimate fear, because I think if you have depression or any mental illness, you live in perpetual fear of your symptoms coming back. So it is kind of understandable that that would be a fear, going off the medication. Um, Again, I'd say all you can do really is be as supportive as possible. Read as much, arm yourself with as much information as you can about medication, weaning off medication, what that means for depression, for whatever illness your partner is dealing with. Um, all you can do is arm yourself with the right knowledge. If your companion, your partner is okay with you talking to the doctor, that is another thing that you can do. But I'd say now is not the time to push anyone. If I, especially to go off medication, I would say now is not the time. I would wait for everything to sort of stabilize and things to peter out a little bit before you actually have them make big steps like that, because you really don't know how their body, how their mind's going to respond.
Thank you, Shaheen. We'll take the next question. Actually, I think this is from the corporate sector. So this is from Tanvi. Some people don't open up about their issues, concerns. They keep their problems with themselves. What can we do to create an environment so that people open up and reach out to friends, colleagues for help? Or what can we do to ensure they are comfortable to speak to a counselor if need be?
I think the number one thing to do is, especially if you're a leader, or if you're in a senior position, is to open up yourself. I think people will always, it's leading by example, right? People will respond when they see another person opening up. It'll feel safe for them to open up. Very often, I think people, especially in work environments, don't open up because it doesn't feel safe to them. They're not sure what's going to happen. Even though somebody is saying it's okay to talk about it, if they don't have a previous example where someone has spoken about it and it has been okay, they might still be unsure of whether it's okay. So I would always say, like, especially if you're in a senior position, be open about your own struggles. Everyone has them. You may not have struggled with depression necessarily or anxiety, but everyone has had their own personal moments where they felt low, or they felt unsure, or they felt afraid. So the first thing to do is, open up yourself, because that helps somebody feel like it's okay. Um, Ensure that you have a judgment free environment where, if somebody is speaking to you, that you sort of educate yourself on what the right things to say are, the wrong things to say are, and make sure that you respond effectively. And sometimes responding effectively can just be saying that, I'm sorry that you're going through this, it's very hard. It's not necessarily having to provide a whole bunch of advice. So I'd say lead by example and talk about it first and foremost.
Great, thank you, Shane. We'll take a break and have a couple of polls, and then we'll come back to the Q&A. So we have a poll. The next question we have is, Do you have a process to know if your employees are stressed or worried about the current scenario of working remotely? I think we had about 70% of corporate professionals on this webinar. So if you could answer this question, do you have a process to know if your employees are stressed or worried about the current scenario of working remotely? I know this is a new space for everyone. So I guess companies slowly but surely will be looking to stay connected with their employees and ensure that they have some way of reaching out for those who may not be handling the situation as well as can be. Okay, we had majority participate. So understandably, 76% of people have shared that they don't have a process yet in place, but something that we'll surely look to work towards. And we will do one more poll. This is around the importance of sleep. We touched upon sleep earlier, but just to get a sense, are you able to get 6 to 8 hours of sleep at least 5 days a week? I know there's been at least 2 or 3 people ask about sleep or having sleep challenges. So that's a key area in general, but I think in these times, even more so, having a good night's rest is absolutely critical to your health and well-being. Great. It looks like majority of people are having reasonably good sleep most of the week. So that's a good sign. So I'll end that poll now. Great. And you should see the results on your screen. Excellent. We'll come back to the Q&A. And there was a couple of, yeah. Great. This is from Varnika. How do you forgive yourself when you make mistakes you are not proud of? And how do you stop self-loathing? How do you stop letting yourself be affected by your past?
This is a great question because it's something that I've been dealing with for like a couple of years. It's just the idea of forgiving myself for things that I feel like places I've not done well in my life, or a lot of things. Because very often forgiveness is like, especially if you've wronged another person, then it's kind of easy to, in a way, to rectify, because you like asking for forgiveness and having someone else forgive you is a great way to forgive yourself. But if the mistakes that you kind of made are mistakes that you've made in terms of choices that you made in your life, I think it's harder because there's really no one to ask for forgiveness but yourself, and we're harshest on ourselves. I think one thing that's really helped me is it's really important to realize that there is no such thing as a good person or a bad person. There are people who do good things. There are people who sometimes do bad things, and we all do a combination of both. There's absolutely no one on this planet who is, never done anything hurtful or done anything bad, so to speak. So I think it's very important to realize that there's no such thing as being good or bad. Sometimes you're good, sometimes you do bad things, sometimes you do good things, and that's okay. So not sort of living in that sort of black and white zone of right and wrong, good or bad is, I think it's a very important thing to do. And like I said, if forgiveness, if you're lucky enough to have someone else to ask for forgiveness, I'd always say that's one of the first ways to actually, go about it. If you feel like you've wronged someone, ask, and say your sorries. And that's also a great thing to do to yourself. Apologize to yourself for whatever mistake that you made, and tell yourself that you did the best that you could at the time with all the information that you had available to you. You did what you could. You couldn't do any more than you could have done at the time. You've learned from it. You're different now. And going forward, all you can do is not accumulate more regret. So work on not accumulating more regret going forward in life.
Great. Thank you, Shaheen. This one is, we're launching EAP, counseling services in our organization. The issue we are facing is that there seems to be a lot of stigma associated with this. How do we address this?
Like I said, someone in a senior position, go to counseling yourself, because as soon as someone sees that you're doing it, as soon as someone sees the CEO of a company also goes to counseling, they're going to say, okay, it's fine for me to go to counseling as well. Because also what happens is, especially when you start like counseling services, I'm not really sure how it works in this particular situation. If it's a matter of physically going yourself, it's, you worry that someone that identifies you, right, that flags you as someone who's dealing with something, if you're not comfortable with openly sharing it. So I think maybe also make the process as private as possible for your employees. Make it as private as possible, where they feel like they can do this in and reveal in their own time if they want to, that they're going through something. But again, I will always say the same thing, which is anyone in a senior position, go do it yourself, so that people know that it's okay.
Thanks, Shaheen. Other than your book, are there any other books you'd recommend in this space of mental health and well-being?
Many. So I would recommend two books by the same author called Matt Haig. The books are called Reasons to Stay Alive and Notes on a Nervous Planet. Reasons to Stay Alive is about the author's journey with depression. It's a brilliant book. It's a very short read. It's an easy read. I would highly recommend it. Notes on a Nervous Planet is about the world and anxiety and how the world is sort of designed to make you anxious. So these are two wonderfully good reads. If you're interested in reading about depression, there is a slightly technical but incredibly brilliant, and it covers everything. A book called The Noonday Demon, which is by Andrew Solomon. It basically covers everything to do with depression. So it's a great book if you want to learn about it. And there are a lot of other great memoirs like An Unquiet Mind, This Close to Happy. Yeah, these are the ones that I can think of.
The last one you mentioned was Disclosed to Be Happy?
This Close to Happy by Daphne Milkin.
Okay, I was just typing the titles in the chat box in case.
Yeah.
This Close to Be Happy.
This Close to Happy.
To Happy. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Great. 1 second. So, okay, this was how to deal with feelings of stress at home, because this is a completely new environment and not used to everyone being around at the same time, between family commitments to getting on with my work. I have no space for myself or me time. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I really, this is actually what I've been thinking about, because I have friends in a similar situation that they're stuck, kind of stuck at home. And as much as you love your family, even the most loving families are going to have stress, dealing with this. You're not used to being in each other's space as much as you are. So it is challenging. I'd say, it's not ideal. The best you can do is get space for yourself in small ways. That may mean sitting in the same room as a bunch of other people, putting on a pair of headphones and tuning out and doing something. I saw something quite nice where, because people are kind of stuck at home, what they do is they find little corners of the house to sit in, and they have when they want to be alone, they put up a piece of paper on the wall that says private time, which means everyone around them knows not to come and talk to them, because this is them, this is their space and their quiet time. So it's about setting boundaries and trying to be as honest as you can with your family members to say, listen, I'm struggling because I have a lot to do and I'm very overwhelmed. So just find small ways of making time for yourself. Prioritize your self-care. So again, that really means your nutrition, your sleep. These are all things that are going to help you sort of deal with this. There's no, you can't go out of the house, so in a way you're kind of stuck. You can't actually leave. So I'd say do the best that you can, and try to find pockets of time for yourself, and talk to your family members about that. They will understand, because everyone's on the same boat.
Great, thank you, Shaheen. My son in his 20s acknowledged that he is very disturbed and he feels the world is falling over him. However, he's not okay to go and meet a psychiatrist. What should I do?
Again, as a family member, one of the hardest things is sort of knowing how to approach the situation, how to talk to someone that's dealing with something. Again, always educate yourself as much as you can about what the family member is going through. So in this case, it sounds like your son may be experiencing depression and anxiety to some degree. So read as much as you can about those two things, because the more you know about it, the better. Don't be afraid to talk about it. Definitely talk about it, but at the same time, you know your child is, better than anybody. So I think it's very difficult to sort of understand how much to push and how much to hold back, and when to leave someone alone. And unfortunately, it is a bit of trial and error. It means trying and finding that this is not working, or finding that something is working. It is really the most that you can do. If you can, I would suggest also, calling a helpline yourself, to talk to a professional, because even though you personally are not going through anything, a family member is going through something. So talking to a professional on a helpline, or even, there's a lot of internet, like online counseling. You can, get a lot of good advice on how to cope with the situation. And also, you also, as a family member, people really don't realize that, living with somebody who's going through something mentally takes a huge toll on you as a caregiver, especially as a parent. It takes a huge toll on your mental health. So it's very important that you take care of your mental health, because caregivers are also known to, start to experience depression and anxiety when there's a family member going through something. So um, it's very important that you also look after yourself.
Great. Thank you, Shaheen. When it comes to energy and keeping yourself motivation, what do you do every day to keep your energy high and be self motivated each day?
So to be very honest, my energy's been very low for the last 2 days. I've not been in a good place mentally over the last 2 days. But honestly, I really again think that's par for the course. I'm going to have good days, I'm going to have bad days, and I think I'm okay with that. Like I spent the first 18 days of lockdown very positive and feeling very driven about my time indoors, but eventually it has sort of taken its toll, and that's okay. So one of the first things is that the way I stay motivated weirdly is also by letting myself be demotivated for a day or two, because sometimes you need that downtime to recuperate and come back. You need that day of not being productive to come back.
Yeah.
Um, so I've been doing that, and again, everything I've mentioned so far, routine is really, so I'm managing to keep my routine going. I'm working. I'm trying to work in the same period of time every single day. The one thing I'm really doing, which I think, which is hard for a lot of people right now, is I'm really looking after my food, and making sure I get a bit of physical activity, and even that's yoga on a mat, just a little bit, because I really find that, especially for depression and anxiety, I find that food has a huge role to play in how you feel. Like sugar is terrible for you if you're depressed or anxious, because it just creates spikes and crashes. So I've avoided sugar completely, which has made me a lot more stable. So I'd say, start with nutrition, and if you're not feeling okay, it's okay. You'll feel okay 2 days from now or tomorrow.
Oh, great. My past toxic friendships tend to affect me a lot, and I'm unable to maintain anything healthy now. How do you deal with the thoughts of past toxic friendships? Hmm.
Um, I mean, I've never had experience with like toxic friendships, like particularly, but I would just say, like, I think dealing with the past is kind of similar to, the question of forgiveness. And where, you can't really do anything about things that have already happened. That's out of your control. It's out of your hands. That's not something you can do anything about. All you can do going forward is making sure that you don't accumulate further regret in your life. You can't do anything about the regret that you've already accumulated. Just moving forward, you can take that information and do the best that you can, to not do that. So in this case of a toxic friendship, I'd say, what a toxic friendship entails. All you can do going forward is know that, these are the things to look out for, and not get sort of caught in those same traps again. Um, and I mean, it's the past is not anything, you can't control it. So at some point, you kind of have to sort of focus on being, mindfulness is very good. You have to sort of center yourself and ground yourself into the present, and heal from whatever scars those things have caused. So that might mean doing a bit of soul searching, going to therapy, talking about it, talking about the ways in which that hurt you, and healing from it.
Great. In terms of health, what is your sort of eating habits during the day? In the sense, what is your routine in terms of eating, like in terms of your
So
diet
there
and
are a
such?
couple of things I'm not doing. I haven't touched sugar in 30 days. I haven't been having dairy. That's a personal choice that I've made. I've been avoiding processed foods entirely. I haven't had any processed foods. I haven't had anything out of a packet in like 30 days or either. No chips, nothing like that. Because also this is the kind of time it's a boredom is abound, and the first thing you want to do when you're bored is put food in your face. So it's the only like having these guidelines has really helped me not go off that, and it's helped me keep very steady, because you can really heal your body with food. I really do believe that you can heal your body with food. You can heal it from the inside out. So it is very important what you actually eat on a day-to-day basis. Incidentally, for sleep, what I was told by a doctor a long time ago was have eat carbohydrates before you go to bed, because if you find trouble sleeping, carbohydrates help you sleep well. They relax you. So potatoes, rice, things like that. If weight loss is not your goal, you can eat carbs before you go to bed. It really helps with sleep.
Great, thank you. Siblings, be it two brothers, two sisters, like in your case, personalities are appear quite different. How do you, let's say Alia and yourself, how do you support each other? And obviously, with your different personalities, how does she support you during your highs and lows?
So she has just gotten into a great habit of, she checks in on me regularly. So just the other day, I was sitting in my room for a while. She just popped her head in and said, "Are you okay? Is everything fine?" So I said, "Yeah." She said, "Are you sure? Low mood?" I said, "No, absolutely fine. Just a little tired." She's like, "Okay, great." So it's just as simple as that. She checks in on me every now and then to make sure that I'm okay. Um, I think it also takes a lot of pressure off of me when if I am experiencing a low mood, it takes the I don't have to be the one to initiate a conversation. I don't have to be the one to initiate saying I'm not feeling good. So somebody asking me makes it a yes or no question, which is easier for me to deal with. I can just say yes, bad day, no, fine, versus hi, I'm not feeling good. So it's a yes or no question, which makes it easy. I don't know. I think we look at the differences in our personality. We look at it as a huge bonus. It's a benefit because that means we're both sort of we have strengths that maybe the other person doesn't have, and we complement each other really well because of that. So we kind of look at our differences in personality as kind of a very good thing.
Great. Is there anything that both of you keep each other accountable to, like to help each other be accountable to eating healthy, or you
Oh
exercise?
yeah, yeah. We exercise together. We eat healthy together. My sister is very obsessed with my food on a day-to-day basis. So she's always like, "You're not eating enough. You're not eating. You need more veggies. Why are you eating this for dinner? This is not." So she's very involved in my food on a day-to-day basis. So even if she isn't home, like when lockdown's not on, she will call me and say, "I hope you're eating fine," because she's very worried about my food. But yeah, in this time we're exercising together. We're eating together. We're constantly doing checks on each other in terms of how you're feeling. Is it how you're feeling today? It's not is everything okay, because I mean things are not really okay in a lot of ways. It's just how are you feeling, is little check-ins we're doing regularly.
Great. No, thanks, Shane. The other extreme of an earlier question where you got too many family members, someone who's staying alone. So when you're staying alone, then I have different kinds of challenges, as you can imagine, being isolated, staying on my own, away from family. Any suggestions that you would advise me when I'm, feeling lonely or depressed because I have those quiet moments?
Prioritize your mental health, like 100%. So prioritize that over absolutely anything else that you're doing, because it just means that you don't have anyone else to check in on you, so you have to check in on yourself. You can have people obviously call you and do that, but there's no one sort of around you on a day-to-day basis to actually monitor how you're doing or keep track of how you're doing. So it's very important that you check in on yourself on a regular basis, which means everything that I've mentioned, from food, exercise, sleep, all these things have to be of paramount importance. Your routine becomes a lot more important as well, because otherwise it's very easy to sort of slide into um, complete inactivity when no one's around. And again, the only thing I can really recommend is constantly staying in touch with people over a video call and text message and voice notes. And we're lucky we have so many ways of connecting with people. So I would recommend doing that.
Thank you, Shaheen. I really enjoyed this session today. Very nice initiative. Would you be open to having similar sessions for companies so that we could reach out your message and your learnings, experiences with our companies?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Always happy to talk.
Great. Beyond the webinar, what else could we do with companies? Any thoughts from your experience? Would it be more of a conversation so that we can share similar specific answers to their questions? Anything that you feel companies wise, how we could
I
help
don't
them?
know. To me, I really find actually talking to people like very beneficial. So if there's any way to have people get involved in more than just a chat way, I find that very helpful. Because I really think the best way to deal with anything is to sort of get community advice and community involvement. And I think we really learn the most from each other's experience. So personally, I'd love to, if there's any way to make sessions more interactive, I would really love that.
Great. I think one of the things we spoke about is bringing, let's say a male personality with similar experiences to also be on it. So maybe for the corporates, we could potentially explore that. So it becomes sort of like a two-way or three-way conversation sort of panel as well. But that's great. Someone here is mentioning, it said, as I've been connecting with the employees and their families to ascertain their well-being during these tough times, we've come across instances of family abuse because of their, I guess, pressures at home, especially for certain women employees of ours. And we're facing a big challenge. Any suggestions of what I could do to help resolve these situations?
Speak to a counselor or a professional immediately. Because I am not in a position to give you advice on that. It's a horrible situation, but I'm not in a position to give you the right kind of advice for that. So immediately, definitely talk to a professional who will be able to better guide you. And if you can provide counseling for the person that's going through this, even better. So I'd say definitely do both. You should talk to someone as well as offer that to your employee.
Thank you, Shane. We'll just take another 2 or 3 questions. My dad is feeling very low and tense these days. He's a businessman and used to traveling, meeting lots of people day to day. And because of this isolation, he's always tense, tired, and feeling very low. As a son, what would you suggest I could do for my father to help him in this situation?
I'd say connect with him as much as possible. I think especially for older people, I think it just gets a little harder. I feel like they're less connected with the outside world, maybe. So I have realized that for parents and that generation, I think it is a little harder. So I'd say, just again, do regular checkups, make sure that he's doing okay. If you feel like it's very bad, again, my advice, is quite standard in that sense, which is talk to a professional, encourage him to talk to a professional, give him things to look forward to in the day, So even if there's a favorite food of his that he likes, just give him that to look forward to on an alternate day basis. I think it's important to provide people with a sense of excitement, a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning. So even if that's you sitting down and saying, let's start watching something together, it gives somebody something to do with their day, a structure and a purpose to their day. So these are small little things that you can do.
Whilst I'm currently unemployed, so my stress levels mentally are very high because of the uncertainty. Any suggestions on what I guess I could learn or do during this time so that I'm better prepared for when things allow us to again step out? I guess learning, anything in the learning space that you'd recommend?
I mean, learning. So, I mean, it's learning on 2 levels, right? I mean, obviously, if you're talking about actual learning, there's a whole bunch of courses that you can do, online courses that are free as well. to skill up. A lot of people are doing that right now. A lot of people that are not really working at the moment are sort of doing that to sort of enhance their bag of tricks, to give them, more, have more to offer in the future going forward. I think there is also, I feel like this is the time to sort of work on your internal makeup, your internal resilience, your internal coping mechanisms, because the better equipped you are on that level, the more you will actually be able to deal with adversity. I can't even imagine how difficult it would be to be unemployed in this time. When everything's so uncertain. I'd also say just ask for help. If you're finding that you're struggling, ask people in your life for help and ask them for advice. What you should do, how you should sort of deal with it. Because again, I really feel like that's a lot of people are in the same boat. A lot of people are struggling financially and in terms of work right now. So people are dealing with it in a lot of ways. So that sense of community, I really think helps.
Thanks, Shaheen. We'll take this one last question. It's about communication. So, is communication interaction the best way to help with mental health, whether you're the person who's going through it or the family member who knows about it? Is it all boils down to communicating effectively to help have kind of clarity and breakthrough from this discomfort?
I don't think that's all it boils down to. I think that's a very huge part of it. I think that's a big facet of it, because when you communicate effectively as someone who's going through something, you can communicate your needs effectively, and the people around you are then better equipped to sort of understand what your needs are and deal with it. Also, as a family member of someone going through something, the better your communication, the more obviously you're going to be able to encourage your family member to get help or to deal with things like that. I don't think it's the only thing though. Um, I do think it's a very big part of it. I think a lot of the work, especially for people that are dealing with depression, is work that they have to do internally. It's not necessarily based on outward communication all the time. I think there's internal work to be done. And there's not much that you will be able to help as a third person in that until they are ready or they are in a place where they are willing to accept that help. So communication definitely is very important though.
Great. Thank you very much, Shaheen,
Thank
for
you so much.
been an absolute pleasure and privilege to spend this time with you, and thank you for your time to answer the questions that were shared.
Thank you so much.
I'm just going to share with each of you a short video of 1 minute. This is a video from the CEO of Building Blocks.
I'm the founder of Family Development Services. We have started this organization about. I'm the founder of Family Development Services in Bangalore, and our focus mainly is on education for children from slums, where most of the parents are daily laborers. They go out every morning, earn funds, and come back home with money. So today, with the COVID-19 situation and the lockdown, many people are not able to go out to work and earn money. So that has put them in a very critical condition because the children are at home and there is no food to be fed. So we started a food bag distribution. We have distributed about 2,200 bags. Each bag is about 25 kilos with rice, dal, all the essential stuff. We have totally so far distributed 50,000 kilos or more a little bit. So the need is so big that 50,000 kilos is nothing. The number of people just in this one slum is about 2,500 families. And what we have touched is about 300 families. So the need is big, and we want to appeal to you to help the people in this slums where people are in a desperate situation. Thank you so much for Gagladi family for stepping out and wanting to help with an appeal to all of you that are going to be approached by Gautam and Ram. Thank you so much for your help.
Great, thank you. Just to move towards the 1 second. So it'd be a pleasure to connect with each of you on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can take a picture or just simply Google. Also do follow Shaheen's mental health awareness program on Instagram, that Here Comes the Sun official. As I said, we are supporting building blocks and raising money to support them in their, to bring food to the children in the slums. So there is a link being shared on the chat and will be sent by email. All contributions are welcome, and it's between 500 rupees per month per child or 2,000 per family. We leave it to you to contribute as much as you feel comfortable to this good cause and support the children to receive healthy food and nutrition. Thank you. And last but not least, this is our next webinar coming up this Saturday. So for anyone interested to become a published author and learn how they can do that in 6 months, I think there's a golden opportunity to learn to become an author of an area that you're passionate about. And I think with this time at home, it gives us the time to actually write a book. So do feel free to join us for that next webinar this coming Saturday. On behalf of Shaheen and myself, thank you for being with us today. Shaheen, any closing words before we wrap up for today?
Just stay safe and somehow try to stay sane. I know it's really hard, but I hope everyone's safe and well and stays that way.
Thank you very much, Shaheen, once again. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Our best wishes to you and the family, and we'll stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.